Paraphrasing Lawrence Krauss, science is changing the playing field in a way which makes people uncomfortable. And you gentlemen have 3 prime examples of this ever-accelerating trend. So Richard Dawkins says we are survival machines meant to propagate genes in the gene pool. Sam Harris says the self is an illusion and there might not be free will. And Matt Dillahunty says there's no God, the universe doesn't have a purpose and doesn't owe you anything. How do we address this discomfort and nihilistic views that some people might have when transitioning out of religions or dogma? And maybe you have sometimes these thoughts, and how do you fend them off? Thank you.
I'm glad you asked this. I don't know how well you paraphrase any of the 3 of us, because we're all going to nitpick this, but this issue of meaning was something that we talked about that we wanted to address tonight. Issues about death and nihilism and the fears of, oh my gosh, you are insignificant to the universe. How can we better deal with those?
Well, we might have slightly different answers to this, but I think it's worth acknowledging that it really is a problem. I mean, the way I view secularism and even atheism specifically, these are not answers to the problem of living a good life. And that is a problem every one of us wake up in the morning trying to solve. You have to find some game to play in this life that is satisfying. And it's a genuine question, how to get what you want out of life. And there's a deeper question about whether or not you want the right things. Right? Is there a deeper game to be playing that you're not aware of, or you haven't learned how to play? And I think there are right answers to those questions. It's possible to not know what you're missing. It's possible that you are in a circumstance where your life could be much better than it is, but it's not going to be that way because you're tending to live as you did yesterday. And the problem with secularism and atheism and even humanism is that these really aren't answers to that question. These are just ways of clearing away the bad answers offered by religion. And the religious answers are bad for many reasons, but they're bad because in their substantive particulars, they're almost certainly untrue, but there's a diversity of religious answers which are in zero-sum contest with all others, and therefore they're divisive, and they amplify the tribalism we see in the world. So this problem of how to live a good life is a real one, and into that space cleared by secularism and atheism and the criticism of ancient bad ideas has to come something. And for some people it's science, for some people it's art, for some people it's some secular version of what I've in terror and shame and in scare quotes called spirituality. But you need something, and most people on earth are living as though there's either there's no basis to find something apart from religion, or having lost religion, they're living as though the answer is just to be eating a little less sugar than the average person your age, and watching a little less pornography than the average person your age, and trying to be responsible and well-educated, and there is nothing sacred or profound left. And I think that is a real deficit of the secular conversation, and I think we need a secular version of profundity that, again, this is a place where we may differ. I don't think science and art and fun fully capture what we want in life. There's something else.
The particular example of the question threw at me was my view that we are survival machines for our genes, which many people think is bleak, and Sam's view that we have no free will is bleak. I think there's a nobility in that bleakness. I'm inclined to say, if somebody says to me, somebody did say to me actually after The Selfish Gene was published, that he couldn't sleep for 3 nights after he read it. Another man told me that it was a Canadian professor said that a young woman, student of his, came in to him in tears having read The Selfish Gene because it made her feel that her life was meaningless. I mean, my inclination there is to say, well, tough. Maybe your life is meaningless, but you need to change the way you look at your life, because what's true can't be changed. I'm reminded of the 18th century wit, I forget who it was, who a lady said, "I accept the universe," and he said, "By gad, she'd better." That was one of my sort of first reaction. But actually, accepting the universe, accepting the truth of the universe, accepting the truth about life, bleak as it may be, there is a nobility. You stand up and face into the keen wind of the truth. And I think that is a noble and an actually aesthetically pleasing thing to do anyway. So I don't want to hide from the truth. I think that the truth can be hard, but there is nobility in accepting it. And I think that's somewhat the meaning of Darwin's famous closing words of The Origin of Species. There is a grandeur in this view of life. So I think that maybe I differ slightly from Sam on that.
Well, I would just add that there's nothing unscientific in what I would propose we need to honor the profundity of our circumstance. Sure. It's not that you have to believe anything on insufficient evidence, but I just feel like there's more to a rich human experience than merely not being wrong.
Of course.
Or having correct, propositional knowledge of the world. And I know obviously you share that view.
And it may not be one answer for everybody. I tend to look at it, by the way, as religions, I think, by and large, have come from flawed thinking, trying to answer the questions about reality, including about our fears and death and life and what's the meaning and purpose. And because of this, and because they become so pervasive, they have absolutely infused every conversation. Even if you're not a religious individual, you're surrounded by people, and they've passed on as memes to address, oh, well, you can't have meaning unless it's this type of meaning that is encapsulated within religion, when there may be other meaning that's valuable. By poisoning the well with religious ideas of the way things ought to be, it seems to increase this frustration when we find out things don't work the way religion thinks they ought to be. And it's the example, I've heard somebody say once that religion poisons you and then offers you the cure, and I changed that to say that religion convinces you you're poisoned when you're not, and then offers you the homeopathic remedy. And instead of going down that route, it's going to be difficult to take people who have had these ideas that where the entire conversation has been colored by religious claims about the way things ought to be. It's going to take work, and that's why I hear from people who've been atheists for 50 years and wake up with nightmares of hell or frustrations about nihilism. And I would say, I'm sure we'll get into this at some point, maybe not tonight, but Dennett would point out that the conversations around free will have been similarly poisoned by the things that we want about free will, that we want to have moral responsibility. And I don't think that free will in any libertarian sense is required for that in the first place, nor do I think it exists.